My husband left me for dead.
I'm so sorry. I'm here for you.
Thank you.
Her husband left her for dead while she was pregnant. A billionaire found her on a park bench. What happened next will leave you speechless. Before we continue, tell us in the comments what time it is and where you are watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's get back to our story. Zara Mitchell was 23 years old the morning her entire world quietly collapsed around her and nobody noticed. Not the joggers cutting through Elmwood Park. Not the pigeons picking at yesterday's crumbs. Not a single soul in that city of 4 million people. Just Zara, her back pressed against the rough bark of an old elm tree, one hand resting on the round curve of her stomach, tears sliding silently down her face into the collar of a blouse with a torn seam at the shoulder she'd been meaning to fix for 3 weeks now. She didn't fix it because she had no money. She hadn't eaten since yesterday because she had no money. She was sleeping in this park because she had no money and nowhere left to go. But the baby inside her, 5 months along, stubborn and alive, kicked like she had something to say about all of it. Zara had met Dion at 20. She was waiting tables at a late-night diner off Route 9, the kind of place where the fluorescent lights buzzed and the syrup dispensers were always sticky. Dion came in after an open mic night, all easy confidence and honey smooth promises. He told her she was too smart to be working there. He told her she deserved more. He told her, and she could still hear it, word for word, "One day I'm going to build us a life so beautiful, baby, you'll forget every hard thing you ever went through." She believed him. She believed him enough to stop taking night classes at the community college. Believed him enough to pick up extra shifts so he could chase his music. Believe him through 2 years of almost and soon, and just wait, through the afternoons he spent with friends while she came home smelling like grease and exhaustion. She stopped believing him the Tuesday morning she walked out of the gas station bathroom holding a pregnancy test. Her hands were shaking, so hard she almost dropped it. No, that was the first thing Dion said when she told him. Not "Are you okay?" Not "I'm scared but we'll figure out," not even silence while he processed. Just no, flat and immediate, like she'd suggested something absurd. "You think I'm ready for this? You think I want to end up like my dad, chained to some job I hate, coming home to a house that suffocates me?" His voice had risen, and she remembered taking a step back. "I told you what you needed to hear, Zara. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this." He was gone by midnight. Duffel bag, leather jacket, the sneakers she'd bought him for his birthday. Gone. Within 5 days, she discovered the joint savings account. Every dollar she'd scraped together from years of double shifts and skipped lunches, $3,400 in total, had been emptied. He hadn't even hesitated. She fought to stay afloat. She worked every shift the diner would offer, tying her apron tighter as her belly grew, until one evening her manager called her into the back office and told her, without looking up from his clipboard, that it wasn't working out. "Customers notice," he said, like she was a problem to be managed rather than a woman trying to survive. She begged for more time at her apartment. Her landlord, Mr. Okafor, who had always seemed like a reasonable man, handed her an eviction notice with the tired eyes of someone who had already made peace with the decision. 3 months behind. No exceptions. On a Wednesday morning in late March, she came home to find her belongings in black garbage bags lined up on the sidewalk like her life had been reduced to trash for collection. She was 4 months pregnant, had $42 in her pocket, and had no family left to call. Her mother and father had died in a highway accident when Zara was 16. No siblings. The friends she'd had before Dion had slowly disappeared during the years she'd spent making herself smaller to fit the shape of his dreams. The streets were not what she had imagined. They were colder, louder, and more indifferent than anything she had prepared herself for. The first night, a man tried to snatch her backpack. She yanked back hard and the shoulder seam of her blouse tore apart. She didn't let go. She held on. That torn blouse became the one constant. She wore it every day because she had no other choice, and it became a quiet, painful symbol of everything that had been ripped away from her. But the baby kicked. Every single morning, the baby kicked. Hard, deliberate, rhythmic. like a small fist knocking on a door saying, "I'm here. I'm real. Don't you dare give up. I'm calling you Priya," Zara would whisper some mornings, her palm flat against her belly, the elm tree solid behind her. "Because you're going to be the kind of woman who survives everything and still blooms." She didn't know how they were going to make it. She just knew in some bone-deep, unreasonable way that they were. She did not know, in those quiet, desperate mornings, that Dion was already drowning, that the money he'd stolen burned through in 6 weeks, that the music career went nowhere, that the friends he'd chosen over his family had vanished the moment he couldn't cover his share of the rent. She didn't know that Mr. Okafor would suffer a series of losses that year that would make him rethink every cold decision he'd ever made. She didn't know that the diner manager who let her go would, 12 months later, watch his own daughter get left alone and pregnant, and would lie awake at 3 in the morning thinking about a girl named Zara. The machinery of consequence moves slowly, but it moves. She was asleep against the elm tree, the kind of sleep that comes from pure depletion, not rest, when she heard footsteps stop near her. She didn't wake gradually. Her eyes opened like a switch had been flipped, and she scrambled backward against the bark before she even registered the man crouching a few feet away. Hands up, palm out. "Hey, easy. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." He was in a suit the color of charcoal, clearly expensive. Late 30s, maybe. His shoes alone probably cost more than a month of her rent had. But his voice wasn't the voice of a man who wanted anything from her. It was the voice of someone genuinely alarmed by what he was seeing. "When did you last eat?" he asked. She almost lied. "Yesterday," she said instead. "Half a sandwich." Something moved across his face, not pity, something deeper than pity. Something that looked like recognition. "There's a cafe across the street," he said. "Will you let me take you? Please." His name was Calvin Osei, 38 years old, founder and CEO of a supply chain technology company called Meridian that had grown over 11 years of brutal work into a 9-figure enterprise. He wore a $5,000 suit and arrived at board meetings having already answered 40 emails. His time was not cheap. He had cut through Elmwood Park that morning only because his driver had taken a wrong turn and Calvin, impatient, had gotten out to walk the remaining blocks. He sat across from Zara in the cafe and watched her eat. Eggs, fruit, toast, orange juice, with the quiet attention of a man doing math in his head. She told him everything, haltingly at first, then all at once, the way a dam breaks gradually and then completely. Dion, the savings, the eviction, the weeks on the street. His expression remained steady throughout, but his jaw was tight by the end. "My mother," Calvin said after a long pause, "was 6 months pregnant with me when my parents lost their apartment in Accra and had to start over in a country where nobody knew their names. She cleaned office buildings at night. My father worked construction in weather that would have broken most men." He looked down at his coffee cup. They were taken in by a woman named Adiz Okonkwo. She gave them a room, refused their money until they were stable, and told my mother one thing, that the debt wasn't to her. The debt was to the next person who needed help. He looked up. "I have a 2-bedroom flat about 12 minutes from here. It's been sitting empty for months. I want you to take it. No rent, no conditions, no timeline pressure." He reached into his jacket. "I'm also connected to one of the best obstetric teams in the city. I'll make the call today." Zara felt the tears before she had any warning they were coming. "I can't just." "You can," Calvin said. "Because that baby deserves to be born somewhere safe, and because you have been carrying all of this alone for too long." He slid an envelope across the table. "For today. Food, clothes, whatever you need. We'll sort out everything else tomorrow. But tonight, you sleep in a bed." Priya kicked, one sharp, certain kick, as if she understood exactly what was being offered. 3 months later, Dion came back. He knocked on the door of a clean, warm apartment he had no knowledge of, wearing the look of a man who had been humbled by his own decisions and was hoping that humility would be enough. Zara opened the door. She was 8 months pregnant, enrolled in an online nursing program, and standing straight in a way she hadn't in years. "I was wrong," he said. "I know," she said, and she closed the door. She never saw him again. Priya was born on a bright Saturday in June, small and furious and perfect. Calvin was in the waiting room. When the nurse let him in, and he held her, this tiny girl who had survived everything before she was even born, he said something quietly to her that the room barely caught. Something about how her mother had fought for her before she ever took her first breath, and that she'd spend her whole life being worthy of it. Years later, Zara would open a resource center for pregnant women facing housing crises. The name on the door, the Priya Foundation, and on the wall inside, a framed note that read, "The debt is not to me. The debt is to the next person who needs help." Some people leave. Some people steal. Some people make promises they never intended to keep. But somewhere in every city, in every park, on every ordinary Tuesday morning, there are also people like Calvin Osei who stop walking when they see something that matters. And sometimes that is enough to change everything. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that humanity still shows up when it counts. Drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And have you ever had a stranger show up for you at exactly the right moment? Subscribe for more stories that prove compassion is still the most powerful force in the world.